we will start. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Jeff Collinson, publisher and CEO of Research Money, and I want to really welcome all of you to this webinar, Innovating Innovation, the Quebec Experiment. It's brought to you by Research Money in partnership with Fonds de Recherche de Québec, our partner. Bienvenue à tous. Cet webinar sera en anglais, mais vous pouvez poser des questions en français si vous voulez. And I'm going to do a little logistics on how to do that in a minute. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome Rémi Quirion, our partner, to say a few words of welcome, and then I'm going to come back and do a few logistics. And I am absolutely thrilled to see Luke's face. Luke, bienvenue. We're really happy to have you here. So, à vous, Rémi, and welcome.
Oui, bonjour à tout le monde. Very glad to be a partner with Research Money on this webinar, and with the colleague, with Sylvie and Luc, and with Paul as a moderator. So hopefully we'll have an exciting discussion, and the Fonds de Recherche de Québec are very pleased to be partnering with you, Jeff. Back to you.
Thank you. So before we begin, I'd like to make an announcement that we're having our 23rd Annual Research Money Conference next April, 24-25 April 2024. We will be launching it in a couple of weeks. So watch our website, or if you're already a subscriber to our free e-bulletin, Innovation This Week, we'll have announcements. And if you're not, go on our website and sign up. It's free, and you'll hear from us. So now I want to get started, but for questions, I want people to know, if you look at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A or a question mark. That's where you ask questions. Don't use the chat. On this application, the chat is just for us to talk. We don't really use it. So if you want to pose a question, si vous voulez poser une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez le point d'interrogation, the question mark at the bottom. So I'd like to introduce Paul Dufour, my good friend and friend of Research Money, CEO of Policy Works. Paul has agreed to moderate this esteemed panel. I will disappear, hand it over to Paul, and I'll come back at the end. Thank you. Over to you, Paul.
Merci bien, Jeff, and thank you everyone who is joining this incredible panel that we have here. Merci pour être là aujourd'hui. I am simply the moderator today. The real action is with these three superstar panelists that you are about to hear. I'm going to try to frame a series of kind of opening questions that hopefully will trigger a discussion amongst the panels. I will ask them a tour de rôle to say a few words about each of the questions or respond to them in a succinct fashion, if possible. And then we will hopefully engage the three panelists themselves as a group to feed off of the discussion itself. Please, for those of you who are listening, please feel free to, as Jeff has said, post some questions as you go along. And then at the end, we'll try to leave about a half hour or so for questions. And Daniel Burns, who's on the line here with Research Money, will maybe read out the questions so that we can continue the discussion with the panelists. So please don't be shy to ask questions, s'il vous plaît. Vous pouvez poser des questions. C'est un panel d'expérience et expérimenté. Et j'ai grand plaisir de vous introduire Rémi Quirion.
Bonjour.
Conseiller scientifique en chef du Québec. And I believe, Rémi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you are the currently longest serving chief scientist on the planet. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Is it a good thing or bad thing? I don't know. But it's true.
Tu as survécu. Yes. Anyway, merci, Rémi, and also president, I should add, of the International Network for Governmental Science Advice, which is an important organization we can talk about later. Next on your panel is Sylvie Pétionneau. She's vice-présidente, première vice-présidente Investissement Québec, And she is also a superstar in her own right, quite active on the issue of capital finance, investment, formation, women, and gender issues are going to be very important. We'll talk about that later. And then Luc has joined us. Luc Sirois, bonjour, monsieur. Welcome. Don't know where you are, Luc. You're somewhere in Europe, but nice to have you on board. Le président du Conseil Innovation du Québec, which is a relatively new organization, by the way. It's been around for about 3 years now. In any event, we're going to be talking about this experiment, keyword here, experiment, that has been ongoing for a little while in Quebec. And we thought that the people who are listening in would appreciate learning how Quebec approaches innovation, research, science support as a larger integrated ecosystem. And investment. I should add the investment part is quite interesting, and we'll talk about that in a bit. There, of course, have been many, I won't get into the history, but there have been many research innovation strategies that have been developed in Quebec, going back to the early 70s, when the first Conseil des Sciences was created, des Ministres. And this new research, innovation, investment strategy that was adopted in 2022 after quite an extensive consultation is now moving forward. And it has some very interesting bits to it that I think our audience will hopefully find very interesting from the point of view of their own experience or from wherever they are sitting in terms of their organization. So we'd like to provide you with an overview of some of that. So I would like to begin with a quick question. Hopefully it'll engage an interesting discussion amongst the three of you. Can I ask, where do you see, we're into the second year of the innovation strategy now, where do you see the key points that have been moving forward in a positive, good direction in Quebec with the mise en oeuvre of this new strategy that has been adopted a few years ago? Can I begin with, can I go backwards? Can I go with Luc? Can I ask Monsieur Sirois if you can begin and comment on the
Of course, thank you
going.
so much. Thank you so much. I think there's a few interesting elements you'll find related to the strategy. First, the fact that it encompasses social innovation. It's a first, it's something new. It used to be only related to technological innovation and pure science research. Now we're going into social sciences and making sure to have social entrepreneurs included. And as you pointed out also, this is more than a research and innovation strategy. It encompasses the topics of investments and commercialization. So the elements of supporting the emergence of startups, the venture capital sector also is covered. And this has been always quite a bit successful in Quebec. Now with more support to create, for example, some pre-seed funds to make sure the whole chain of investments is completed. Maybe a third.
Yeah, is technical difficulties.
Maybe I can continue
Yeah, Sylvie,
a little bit
Sylvie, why don't you
on
go
what
next?
has been
Yeah.
implemented and what
Yeah.
has been taking place over the last, I'd say, year. We're working as a team. As you can see, we are here together, and we want to make sure that in the ecosystem, it's very well known that it's a cycle of investment. So it really starts at the beginning with research and then moving on to innovation. And in Quebec, we need to make additional efforts to make sure that we are commercializing the innovation that have been arising from the research facility. So it's a cycle and it's not linear. And over the last year, we've been promoting this concept a lot, and everything that's coming back in terms of returns is helping at the end of the day this innovation cycle, because if we manage to do better in terms of commercializing the innovation that has been arising from research facilities, then we'll have more money to invest in research. So it's all a matter of cycle, and that's really something that is different compared to the other strategies. So every time we talk about innovation, we try to link research, innovation, and investments in our discussions to make sure that we address the full cycle. So that's been working really well. We are a team. I don't know if we started talking to each other before we were really connected with the attendees, but we did mention that there is also the Ministry of Economy, and there's Mathieu Gerbet that's part of this group too, that's quite involved in the strategies. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to do everything we've done. So I'd like to say out loud that Mathieu is part of the gang too. So over the last year, Luc has been quite active. And Luc, can you talk now, or because I was going to cover what you've done? Are you well connected now?
You better go ahead. I think we have technical connection problems, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, Luc has been very, very active in terms not only in gathering data to make sure that we keep track of what we're doing, but he's put in place a team that's offering la formation to all the people that are saying they are providing advisory services in terms of innovations to companies. So now people will have this ability to get this certification, and it's really like a quality control thing, because a lot of people in Quebec were saying they were helping companies to innovate, but we didn't have like this official training, and that's been put together to help companies innovate. And that's quite, I'd say, popular, because I think Luc's team has a lot of demand for that. And it's really, it has a huge impact, because it multiplies the people that are able to really help and support companies innovate in Quebec. And that's really key in the strategy, because we need more innovation. We need more companies. If they do innovate, then will invest in making sure that they are able to be productive. And if they're more productive, they will be able to export more and bringing collective wealth to Quebec people.
Sylvie, can I ask who does this training?
Luc and his team.
So it's okay. So it's professionals that are engaged in this business, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not the collèges or the cégeps or the universities that do this training.
No, it's really Luc's team, and that's been something that is, like I mentioned, very popular. Something new also this year, well, maybe people you've already been aware, but we have 3 innovation zones now that have been announced and are really in operations. The first one is in Sherbrooke with quantum physics, quantum computing. The second one is in Bromont with semi-electronic, we call it in English, not semiconductors, it's anyway, in the field of electronics with C2MI. And la zone de la transition énergétique, that's in Trois-Rivières, Shawinigan, Bécancour, where you have probably seen a lot of press conferences mentioning that we are creating this zone, and it's really to make sure that the electrification of transport is in place So there are huge investments that are taking place right now, making sure that we have a leading edge in Quebec over this field.
Where's the fourth
Innovation
zone?
districts, innovation zones are key. You'll see more announcements coming soon, where we really promote Quebec's expertise in a specific field. And in the innovation zones, well, you have the component of research, you have innovation, you have startups, you have mature companies, you have industries. And the idea is really working all together to increase, again, innovation, to increase competitiveness of companies and export more, and again, bring collective wealth. So maybe, Remy, you want to talk about maybe Sherbrooke with the University of Sherbrooke, the innovation zone.
Well, I'll start
computing?
maybe I'll start a bit before that. Maybe what's kind of unique and was mentioned in this new strategy, because as Paul said, we had many before, but this time it's ready to link much more closely research, basic research, innovation, and commercialization. And often that piece of commercialization was missing in the previous strategy. And it's also, I will say, also missing overall in Canada. So that's as Sylvie mentioned, we don't see it as linear, we see it as circular. So much more interaction between the partner, university, private sector, small SMEs, large companies, working together, saying, yes, we invest in basic research. And therefore, with the Quebec Research Fund, Quebec is number one in Canada in terms of investment in the research compared to other research and development compared to other provinces. Then the innovation with the Conseil de l'Innovation, and we'll look as an innovator in chief. And then with Investissement Québec and Sylvie, the commercialization piece, which often, as I said, was kind of missing. So I think after a while now, after almost a year and a half that we launched the SQRI, the Stratégie Québécoise de Recherche et Innovation, I'm amazed there is still a lot of excitement on the ground from the various actors in private sector, academia, that want to work together, try to improve productivity in Quebec, and trying to also connect more globally at the national, at the Canadian level, but also at the international level. So, and one of the tools, and Sylvie mentioned that already, are the innovation district. She said we have 3 at the moment, probably altogether in the next year and a half, probably we'll end up with 8 or 10 at most. And there it will be really around that kind of strategy of a circle, and really going, including basic research, innovation, commercialization as part of the objective of each of these zones. They'll cover agriculture, they'll talk about quantum computing, they cover green energy, and there'll be various other sector, health, aerospace industry also in the future. The one in Sherbrooke on quantum computing, the fact that the government recognized the area as an innovation district with the University of Sherbrooke attracted already quite a lot of industry, small and large, like IBM also have been interested and invested in the quantum computer. So I think this type of strategy very important for the future of Quebec in terms of research, innovation, commercialization. And what we all hope now, that when we'll have the group of innovation district will have been announced, these guys will start to collaborate more and more between themselves. So the quantum computers can work also with the green energy innovation district and so on. So I'll stop here, but don't know if you're back on board now.
Oh, Luc. Luc, are you there? Are you with us?
I can try another time. I can hear you and see you well, but I understand that you don't, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
It
Well, we
seems to
heard you.
work well now. Luc, maybe you want to go over le barometer de l'innovation that you've put together, and the culture of innovation that is emerging more and more with all the tours that you're touring.
and let me know if it's too choppy. But a key element to drive innovation is data and intelligence. So the government of Quebec has supported the creation of a dashboard, so to have all the data about the performance of regions and sectors to identify the strengths and weaknesses. And that's one of the way we can have better actions in terms of where to invest. And we call it the barometer. It's inspired from the European Innovation Scoreboard or the Global Innovation Index, with the twists of not only having the economic development emphasis, but also a view on talent, a view on entrepreneurship, and a view on social development and environmental footprint as well.
That's an exciting experiment, and I guess I was going to ask the three of you individually. So far, you said, I mean, it's still a work in progress, your strategy. Where is the biggest challenge that you see facing, the implementation of the various measures behind this strategy, this integrated strategy? Because clearly, there's a bit of learning by doing here. The question is, to what extent are you seeing something already that really needs to be addressed to move this forward in a positive way?
Well, maybe I could start here. And as you said, it's an experiment. And as scientists, we like to do experiments. We hope that most of them will work sometime. But I think one of the biggest challenges, what I see from my perspective, is the people, is a talent. Having enough talent, well-trained talent in various fields that will be able to make sure that we have this circle from basic research to innovation to commercialization. We're working on that, but it's certainly a challenge. There's a lot of competition for the best people in Quebec, but of course in the world. So certainly putting emphasis on talent is something that we try to do at the Quebec Research Fund.
Sylvie?
Well, I would say that in order to increase productivities of enterprises, we need to increase the level of automation, robotics into companies. In order to digitalize these companies, we need people, skilled people, to help them. The good news is that at Investissement Québec, there is CRIC, Investissement Québec CRIC, which is used to be a Centre de Recherche Industrielle du Québec that merged with Investissement Québec. And there are about 100 engineers that are there really to provide advisory services, support, and help companies really automate their operations. But what we hear still in the marketplace right now is that we need a culture of innovation from the I would say the entrepreneurs, to make sure that they will go through automation and robotics, because 70% of their productivity level could be improved going that route. And the tone at the top is really important when you want to take that. I would say that you want to take it to that level. So you need a tone at the top that it's important to do that. It's a matter of survival, because if you don't invest in automation in the digital field, then you might eventually, I'd say in a couple of years, be out of business. So it's really a matter of survival to take that route. And there's support there, but at the end of the day, the entrepreneur needs to make the decision of moving forward and really become more productive. And that way he or she will be able to export more. But in order to be exporting more, you need to be more productive. And in order to be more productive, you need skilled people to help you. That's why if you don't have it internally, because we hear that, well, I can't find the proper engineers, computer scientists are like, there's a shortage of labor. Well, there are a lot of people in the marketplace that are there in the ecosystem of innovation that are there to help. And Investissement Québec is one of them. But what we hear is that there's still some, I wouldn't say lack of willingness, but not far from that. Because the entrepreneurs are comfortable in the way they're doing their own things. They don't have the time to really strategically plan this change. So that's why you need to really make sure that they are well advised and that you provide services to help them do that and push them to do it. And that's why when Luc is touring in Quebec, he talks a lot about the need to improve the culture of innovations in Quebec, so that entrepreneurs feel that it's a priority for them to do it and not wait, because like I said, it's a matter of survival.
And what makes a huge difference is benchmarks, having a clarity in terms of your investments in R&D versus the investments of your peers elsewhere, your investments in digitization, automation, robotization, and so on, versus your peers in your sector, in your other regions, in other nations as well. That's the best way to trigger action. And then the know-how. There's the notion of talent, but the you make most of not only the digital transformation, but artificial intelligence now. How do you make most of your data? This know-how is, training the trainers is a challenge. It's a challenge for us. Having those people that can, like Sylvie said, and hold hands and provide the support is a challenge. I think what's going to make a difference is when you have clarity of where you stand versus others in international and local benchmarks and dashboards.
Can I ask? There's another experiment going on in Canada at the federal level with something called the Canada Innovation Corporation, which is going to be incorporating the current IRAP, Industrial Research Assistance Program, which is to some extent similar to your innovation advisors that you're training. And I'm just wondering to what extent you're linked up with what's going on with that evolution within the NRC and IRAP and to a lesser extent maybe MyTax to some extent.
It's a wonderful problem. We believe it's going to be making a big difference. Number one, all our surveys and analysis show and what big difference is that they do provide direct funding. Okay, so it's a wonderful program. Lots of promise, but not quite delivered yet. So if it delivers on the promise, the speed of treatment of demands for enterprises will make a difference as well. The speed of business, the ability to engage and pivot and develop programs for making sure we have, as industry, like the response and the proper funding for the proper projects. I think it's going to be great. Now, implementation is a challenge. Building on IRAP and building on their network of advisors is a wonderful idea. And we hope to augment this network of advisors and of experienced counselors with our own network to go further.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Remy, you're off. You're off on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I could add here maybe what Luc just said. There is quite a lot of discussion, relationship with the colleague at I said the federal government level. For example, with MyTax, the largest partner in terms of the dollar, the federal dollar that MyTax receive is Quebec. So Quebec, very, very strong partner, more than all the other province. And that's for maybe the people that don't know about the MyTax. it's really kind of a training opportunity for the younger generation to go to work in SMEs, to work in a large company for a few months, but also to work in NGO. So it's open to social science as well. So that's with my tech, great opportunity. And as Luc said, in terms of talent, and if we can work more and more at the national level, the Canadian level, I think everyone will win.
Can I move to, I want to move a bit outside of our territory and go global here for a minute. I mean, Luc mentioned, benchmarking, very important, global innovation index and so on. And Sylvie, on the investment front, you have to pay attention to what's going on in the global markets and capital markets around the world. To what extent is this strategy engaged directly with the Quebec approach on the international scene? Because you have quite I would argue, activist international approach in a number of areas in dealing with innovation and research. How is this going to be connected? Because you're connected with your ministry, but you have other ministries as well that engage on the global front, right? So I don't know, Sylvie, maybe you want to take a shot at that. Because I think that's going to be important if you're going to benchmark things globally.
Well, if you look at the strategy, SQRE, we do outline very clearly how we're going to make investments. So venture capital is key if you want to support innovation. We're one of the leaders at Investissement Québec in that field. And let's say and we've put together with Luc's team at Axelis, we've put together a fund called Eureka to support really the funding of very, very, very early stage projects emerging from research, university research. So we've looked at the overall chain, and we're making sure that it's well engaged in terms of funding at every step of the way to help companies when they grow, that every stage there's money available. So venture is key, it's there. When we don't invest directly in a company, we will invest in a fund, especially early stage, where the fund managers have the specialty, an expertise specifically in the sector the companies are operating with. And also they can provide support and open networks. They have networks worldwide, so they will open networks for these companies to make sure they are able to commercialize eventually what they are, or the innovation they're producing. So it's really a matter of looking at the overall chain, making sure the funding is available, and different vehicles are used depending on which companies you're dealing with at what stage. But I think we have made major improvements, and we have a leadership in Quebec in terms of investment vehicles, investment players. We work very closely all together. And at Investissement Québec, what's good is that if, let's say, you're at the stage of commercialization, we do have experts internally to help companies find strategic buyers, open new markets, because there's been this merge with Export Québec about 3 years ago. They merged at Investissement Québec, and now in-house, we have about 100 people that are really there to provide advisory services. And we use our 12 offices worldwide to do that too. And we're connected with all the delegations across the world to find new buyers and open markets to companies. And the focus is really going to be on strategic sectors of the economy. We don't help like all the sectors of the economy with that team, but if you're part of a strategic sector, you will have a lot of support so we can help opening doors to commercialize the innovation. We've even hired lately an entrepreneur in residence that is a business person that had success over the years, started his business using, he basically bought, I think, an IP from the university, built up a big company and eventually sold it. And he wants to give back to Quebec because he's been a successful entrepreneur. So he's working with us one or 2 days a week and providing advisory services to companies to help them commercialize. So that's part of the strategy. Also, if you go into more details, you see that.
Yeah.
And we feel that if this works well, that we might add other entrepreneur in residence. So there are a lot of programs available to commercialize internationally the innovation. So we make sure also that we provide the right guidance to access these
Yeah,
funding
that's
programs.
important. Thank you.
And
Rémi,
maybe,
veux-tu dire quelque chose? Sorry, Rémi. Yeah.
maybe just add a little bit here to what Sylvie mentioned. She already mentioned that to some extent, but maybe some of the participants today, they do not realize that that Quebec is a bit different here again from the other province. We have close to 40 delegation at the global level. So we have a head office in Tokyo, in London, in Paris, in Munich, in New York, etc., etc. And the message from the current government to these delegations, to these offices, is help our economy. So a lot of focus on the economy, and there, Investissement Québec and others are key to provide that. So the SMEs or larger company to open maybe new opportunity of market in Japan or in Africa. We have office that are well equipped to support these type of activities.
But Rémi, you also, if I correct me, you also can use your current job as president of INCSA as well to strengthen that connection, n'est-ce pas?
Yeah, for sure. The International Network Government Science Advice, we're present in over 100 countries worldwide. So certainly that could help to open door. And in addition to that, we have started program. Sylvie was talking about entrepreneur in residence, but we have a program also of scientists in residence in these Quebec office abroad. So to network, to develop network, okay, the network that exists in Scandinavia, in Africa, in France, of course, we know a bit more, but that's also another opportunity for young scientists to learn how to do business at the global scale.
Thank you. Luc, are you there? Let's go to Luc.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh,
gonna give it a shot. The OCDE performed a study on the landscape of Quebec and other countries as well. And one of the highlights is the strength of the higher education institutions. What's particular in Quebec is the community colleges, the large network of community colleges, a wonderful asset. Sweden came, the Ministry of Digital and Internal Administration, and the whole delegation came in. What they found about Quebec was the strengths of long-term investment in academic research, investments in long-term seeding of talents, of seeding science, and when we hear from very performing industrial nations like Sweden, I mean, it's a cause for comfort. They say, well, they face a bigger, longer-term issue than we do. In AI, for example, in quantum computing, in terms of having the highly skilled researchers and graduates to feed those industries of the future. So that's maybe one distinction versus the international landscape as well.
Can I just ask very quickly on that, Luc, and the others can comment. Next generation talent is going to be critical for moving forward in any of your strategies that you produced. So my question would be, to what extent are the next generation talent being incorporated deliberately into your boards, your conseil d'administration, your strategic thinking? I do a lot of mentoring for young next gen talent. And, you know, it's important to have that voice in the planning, in the forward look. And so I'm just wondering, to what extent are you reflecting some of this in your own overall approach?
Well, in designing the strategy, we created the Off Innovation Council. So we had a group of 30 young up-and-comers, innovators, scientists, and the like to contribute their particular way of thinking. And it did have a real impact in terms of, for example, including this social innovation category in our strategy. We don't do it enough. We don't do it sufficiently for sure, but we definitely try. Remy mentioned the fact Quebec is the strongest supporter of MyTax. MyTax funds young researchers and their internships and projects in enterprises.
Mhm.
It's 6,000 such young, bright minds that will be receiving a scholarship and be connected in situ, in enterprises, in industry, and be faced with today's real challenges and bring their science to solve it. So that's another way to help boost this phase. It's still not enough, but
Yeah.
big efforts for sure.
Sylvie, or no, let me ask Sylvie. Remy, je vais revenir. I'll come back. Sylvie, what's going on in Investment Quebec on that front, or part of your strategy overall?
Well, where there's 1,200 employees at Investissement Québec, I'd say 50% of these employees are experts in investments and in financing. There's a shortage of labor that have these kind of expertise, but we are very attractive. So I guess we don't have a problem getting the right people to help companies supporting their projects. On the other side of on the other 50%, it's really export. It's people that have an expertise in helping companies export more, opening doors. People that have an expertise in automation, robotics. Again, we are very attractive. I think so because we don't have a problem with finding the right people to help companies. So I'd say it's more in terms of the companies we're helping that we see the shortage of labor and the need to have more talent internally. And innovation is a little bit, like I mentioned before, sometimes not the top priority of certain companies, and they need to have the tone at the top in terms of innovation, and they might need to hire people that know more in terms of innovation of what they're talking about. So I think we're getting there, but there's still a push that needs to be done. That's why les conseillers de l'innovation across Quebec will be helping these companies, will be helping them putting together their transformation projects, but also making sure that they have the right culture, right people to do it. And again, like I mentioned, in the ecosystem, a lot of people are there to support these companies. It's just a matter of saying, okay, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to put it as a priority. And I have an innovation culture defined enough to move forward.
Merci. Remy?
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what the two colleagues have already said, I think talent and involving the younger generation, we must do it well. We must do more. But already we have a few activities on that front. For example, at the Quebec Research Fund, as member of the board, we have 3 boards in the 3 funds. We have a student elected member of the board, like any other member of the board. That's kind of unique. In addition to that, these 3 guys have basically networking with the younger generation in various universities and college, so 12, 15 of them, and they tackle issues like training, unemployment, social innovation, level of salaries for excellence, for bursary and all these type of things. Now they have started to link with the Global Young Academy at the global level. So I think that to bring these guys on board early on as you said, Paul, in the development of a strategic plan for the Quebec Research Fund or the Quebec Research and Innovation Strategy is critical. In addition to that, working with college and university, developing more kind of a horizontal track, so to expose them to other things beside the topic of their thesis. So to know about maybe starting a business, these type of things, we do more and more of that.
I must say I'm impressed with your current strategy on the issue of developing regional innovation capability throughout Quebec, because we often look only at the big centers, the where all the action is. I'll put that in quotes, but in fact, innovation is a very local phenomenon, and you really need to pay attention to wherever bright ideas can come from. And so I'm intrigued by the notion that you can spread your approach into the regions, the municipalities that are not the usual suspects, but they have talent pools, they have capabilities, and so on. As just as a quick example, a number of years ago, there was something called le Conseil de la Science et Technologie du Québec, and they did a series of roadmaps of the capabilities of each region of Quebec, each region of their innovation and technology. And it was a very useful exercise because it showed where, the gap of expertise can exist, and it's not all in Montreal or Quebec City or Sherbrooke. It's everywhere. So to what extent are you doing this?
Relevant point, and if you read Dan Bresnitz's, he's going to be a strong advocate of local economic development, and one of the new element beyond regenerating those regional reports and insights, we created an up-to-date series of studies for every one of the regions and local municipalities. But also now we created a local agency for innovation development, the acceleration spaces that work with Investissement Québec regionally to drive the municipalities with the insights, with the supports, with finding the investment sources, very, very much at a local level. And they have databases of all enterprises, know the champions, and it's very important. I always talk about the Rivière-du-Loup region and the Bas-Saint-Laurent. Nobody would have ever thought that peat moss was a strategic sector for a nation. But over there, they created an enterprise that not only exploited this natural resource and commercialized it, but performed research to extract the chemical components and the elements that could be used in a number of applications. They grew a specialty in industrial equipment for this type of production and exploitation, and they now commercialize the industrial equipment for their own competitors worldwide. They created a real ecosystem. We talked about this innovation zones. We supported the creation of an innovation center there to make this cluster flourish, and it all stemmed from having here on the ground, investments on the ground from Investissement Québec, from the government, and from very motivated local leaders that created those local agencies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If I can add also, when there was this announcements of the 3 innovation zones up to now, and we'll have more announcements in the next few months and years. But if you look at the history of the innovation zones, there were 30 projects that were submitted. We won't have 30 innovation zones in Quebec, but there were 30 requests or proposals that were sent to the Ministry of Economy. And that stemmed really from the regional industries, in regional businesses, regional cities, different cities across Quebec, and all of them had proposed a new concept of a zone with a certain expertise in a certain field, working together with the university, colleges, with startups, and etc. And I did say that not all of them will become innovation zones, but a lot of projects might be converted into innovation centers, like the one that was described by Luc in Rivière-du-Loup, because most of these projects are very innovative and very, I'd say, based on the future of Quebec in different expertise that are worth really putting together. So you see this more and more, that it's coming from different regions of Quebec, not just Montreal and Quebec.
So maybe I could add here a little bit, Paul, that see the first three that were officially announced. You could see that Sherbrooke is fairly large, but still a relatively small city. Then Beaumont, and now Trois-Rivières and Bécancour and so on. So there's still no innovation zone that's been announced for Quebec City or Montreal. So it's really building on the capacity in the region. And a lot of it is due to innovator in the region, to SMEs and all that, but also the network of University du Québec, so the network of university that we have all over the province, and the network of community college. And it was not necessarily planned that way, but it turned out that most of the region have their unique expertise. So in one part is forestry, the other part is aluminum, the other part can be fishery. So they have developed their own niche, so they are not competing with the other part of the province. Now we want them to network more and more together between themselves, so it will be more competitive globally.
Yeah, and you also have, of course, in Quebec, a Grand Territoire, in the Le Grand Nord, Nordicity. The Nordicity aspects here are critical, seems to me, as we pay more attention to some of these social issues that we've been talking about. So I imagine one of your zones at some point that you will have to focus a little bit around what are you going to do about, your expertise in Nordicity, which includes a large part of various disciplines, including, of course, Indigenous knowledge. And so my question would be, is that on the list?
It's not to say on the list for an innovation zone. It's on the list as having them as an actor, and especially with Laval, Université Laval, they have a lot of installation in the northern part of Quebec. We have a global partnership, and I think there is maybe someone from UKRI on the call today. It's a partnership between UKRI, federal government, and the Quebec Research Fund, and the local community for research, social aspect, as well as more industrially oriented type of research in the north. Very critical. We need now to make sure that we increase the level of training, because many of them still a challenge there, a bit like in other part of Canada. But certainly, at least for us in the Quebec Research Fund, it's a priority.
Now, see, I want to leave some time now for some questions, but I want to ask a final quick question about the strategy to each of you, and the question would be, how do you know if you've succeeded? How would you measure impact and success in your strategy?
That's a very good
2007.
question. For every one of these, there's 5 big pillars in strategy and 12 main drivers, and for each one of them, we defined a key performance indicator. Sometimes it's productivity, levels of investments. And we have a live dashboard of every one of these 12 or 15 KPIs that we measure constantly when statistics are published. and that we compare not only with the rest of Canada, but the rest of the OECD nations. What is important is progress. You know, we have objectives for every one of those targets. The trajectory is maybe more important. As you know, for example, our level of R&D investments in Canada versus other nations is on the low side. The trajectory is important. I mean, we're never going to triple R&D levels versus GDP, but if at least we're on a catch-up mode, it'd be relevant. And the contribution of Quebec on this indicator and other also hopefully will be positive.
Sylvie, merci.
Well, we made sure when we put that strategy together that we had very, very impactful KPI. So we're checking that out every 3 months, 6 months all together, au Conseil de l'Innovation. And we know that some of them are moving in the right directions and some of them are in progress. Like anything, it's a 2022, 2027 strategy. It's a 5 years strategy. So some initiatives do take some times, and we monitor it on, I'd say, at minimum every 3 months. We check that out.
Merci.
Maybe I'll just add here that our boss, the Minister of Economy, Innovation and Energy, is very big on these things, on the indicator and providing evidence data that yes, the needle is moving. So he's after us all the time with that. Rightly so.
Very, very important. I agree. Let me give a chance here to our écouteurs, our listeners, and Danielle, are you there? I mean, can I ask if you could? I think there's a number of questions that have been put forward or comments. Danielle, are you there?
Sorry, I had my mic muted.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have 15 questions so far, and I'm just going to start from the first one. Obviously, if any are directed towards somebody in specific, I'll mention that. But yeah, these are kind of a free-for-all here. And the first question is, has the Quebec government conducted any analysis on how the government's investment in research has led to economic growth for the province, new jobs, IP, etc.? If so, could the panel share any insights on the ROI for Quebec?
I think
Maybe you want to
or
answer that
Sylvie.
one?
Yeah, go ahead, Sylvie.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very large question. I'm not sure I'm able to answer that question because it's so large that I don't feel I have the expertise to answer that question. Maybe
Jeff
me?
is typing in. I'm just typing in. Your dashboard is actually measuring progress in that. Maybe.
Luc probably could.
Yeah,
if he-
we'll have to dust off the. I mean, the question is about the correlation between investments in R&D and then economic impact, and I would have to dust off those. I mean, the direct correlation. There's also a strong correlation with investments in highly skilled graduate students and the like. So the correlation is there, but to have a proper answer of the amplitude, where it's difficult to see a correlation is I mean, we make the leap towards productivity. You know, we make the leap that investment in research and in industrial research will drive value add and profits, and which will drive productivity, but that link has not been so clearly established. A much more powerful lever for creating productivity is more in the, as Sylvie said, digital transformation, large investments in infrastructures and capacity for the industries. There the correlation is very clear.
Thank you. Danielle, there's another question now, I think, on commercialization from Ontario. Is that right?
Yep. So this one comes in, and it says, thank you for mentioning the issue of commercialization. As an innovation mentor in Ontario, the focus has not been much on keeping the innovation benefits in Canada, despite the huge investments in creating innovation. Are there mechanisms or even opportunities to encourage, educate, train, support innovators to grow their business successes in Canada and reap the benefits of the investments in innovation?
Yeah, it's a question dear to everyone's heart. Current work is being done in terms of there's always been criteria for keeping when there's government support for keeping the enterprise or the activities in Canada, and this will be strengthened. There is opportunities, for example, to provide further incentives for keeping the patents in Canada, for patenting or doing tech transfers to Canadian companies. There's been research that in the past, I mean, international companies were quite agile and capable and determined in coming and licensing and taking IP from Canadian universities and the like. It was the case. The culture of in licensing and doing tech transfers within and Canadian companies was not as developed, and now that's one of the area that's being addressed and that's slowly being corrected. It shifted over the last 3 years from licensing 80% of the IP to foreign companies to about 78% in Quebec to local Quebec or Canadian companies. So that's one example.
Thank you. We go to the next question because I want to get through some of these questions. There's a number of them just so that everybody has a chance to weigh in here. Go ahead, Danielle, the next one.
Yeah, sure. So how do the innovation zones compare to the global innovation clusters invested in by ISED? Or alternatively, what do you feel are the key differences that make the innovation zone approach better in your view?
Well, the innovation zones, I mean, when we put that together, we did look at certain benchmarks on the international scene. So it's not like something that's new. It does exist, different areas of the world. But we looked at best practices and we adapted that to what we could do in Quebec, because there are always differences depending on where you're putting it together. So for us, what's new here is really, like we talked about at the beginning, it's this cycle. It's really the connecting the links together, because we did have a linear approach of doing research, and then after that you innovate, and after that, well, you try to find funding to commercialize your project or to invest into commercialization. So really what's new is people working together, creating this cycle, creating this network, and it's going to be deployed over the next, I'd say, 10 years, because when you put together an innovation zone, by the time people start really working together, it takes a while. But at the beginning, from the start, the universities are there, the colleges are there, the businesses are there. So research center, so everybody's there working together from the beginning, but it does need time to put that together. So
one big the emphasis on local living areas. So the districts, so creating a real physical district in a city.
No, that's key with restaurant and theaters, and of course we are not there yet.
We don't have that yet.
Early days, but it's really a new living area, sustainable development, sustainable housing. All of that is part of the creation of these innovation zone.
Yeah, I've learned that patience is the passion of all great hearts. You got to continue and keep at it. The next question from our friends over at Research Money, maybe. Danielle.
Yeah, so this comes from our managing editor, Mark Lowy, and he says, is there anything unique or different about Quebec compared to the rest of Canada in trying to connect research, innovation, and commercialization? In other words, do you have to do things differently in making these connections because of Quebec's economy, industrial sectors, politics, etc.?
Well, I can just comment on the fact we have a lot of SMEs compared to, let's say, Ontario. And SMEs, more on the S, they don't invest enough in innovation. And when you don't invest enough in innovation, it creates a gap with productivity. That's where we're trying to really close the gap of productivity. But definitely it's quite different to Ontario because we have a lot of SMEs. So we need to take them more, support them more, advise them more, be there to make sure that that the S becomes an M, they become medium-sized enterprise, and the medium-sized enterprise become large enterprise. Because when you're a large enterprise, then you do invest more in innovation. You have higher paying jobs. You do more R&D. You export more. So the idea is really to create more larger sized companies.
And maybe I could add here, globally or in general, a culture of collaboration for various reasons. It's relatively easier to collaborate between academia, various academic institutions, academia and industry. It's a bit easier here than, for example, if we compare with the Boston area, the Bay Area, or even Toronto. Maybe because we're smaller to some extent, maybe less resources at some point, financial resources. So we have to collaborate instead of trying to develop everything in parallel. So long history of collaboration, very strong. And that's what we're trying also to nurture for many years at the Fonds de Recherche du Québec. So collaboration, so that working together, you'll be stronger at the global level.
Yeah.
All right.
Danielle, can you go to the next one, please? We'll just zip along here.
Where do young academic entrepreneurs and their startups fit within this research, innovation, commercialization chain? How important is the students' contributions, including their startups?
I missed part of it. Can you repeat the question? Or?
Sorry, yeah. So, where do young academic entrepreneurs and their startups fit within this research, innovation, commercialization chain? How important is the students' contributions, including their startups?
Well, it's critical, and in the strategy we talk a bit about that. Scientific entrepreneurship, like partnership with at Concordia, is an organization known as District 3, where it's there to help students, young entrepreneurs that want to start their business, helping them to start and then helping them to grow. At the Quebec Research Fund, we have more and more programs, some of them in partnership with Axelis, to try to promote young people that would like to start their own business. So that's something we're trying to do more and more, again, to diversify opportunity for trainees, could be PhD or master level type of degrees, but trying to provide more and more of those, because we know that very few of them will end up having an academic career in university. So diversifying creation of their own enterprise is key. What we need to do with them, and maybe Sylvie could comment on that, or Luc, when they have created their small companies and they start to do business, make sure that they survive.
Yeah, of course. That's why I said at the beginning that we look at the overall chain of capital to make sure that there is access to capital at every stage of the way. And Axelis has been put together. It was part of the strategy that we're discussing today. It's been put for that specific reason too. Investment in specific investment funds have been put together to make sure that this chain of capital is efficient.
Can we go to the next one on IP? There's an IP question here.
Yeah. So, With Quebec making investments in these innovative companies, are there any worries about losing public-funded IP to foreign companies? Any thought to restricting IP exports in any way?
That's a
Sylvie.
very good question. We have that in mind every day of when we work. We want to create dominant players in Quebec with head offices in Quebec, but these companies having an international reach. What we don't hope for is the sale of this company or sale of the IP and that everything disappears. But it's a free market. We can do all the efforts we can to make sure that, let's say we have a financing agreement with the companies, we can say, well, you're going to reimburse us if you sell the company, and we have certain rights, that are included. But at the end of the day, it's a free market. We can't. Every company has shareholders, and if the voting of shareholders that will decide if the company is sold or not. But we want to make sure, and it's in that strategy, that we have more and more head offices, and we do everything we can to support these companies to develop. We want to have more worldwide leaders in Quebec.
Yeah, the best defense is offense. If we could grow homegrown local companies that were born here and that will go and acquire elsewhere, that's the way. And having a strong access to capital, strong access to growth capital, so to enable them to go to those next stages instead of selling off part way, it would be the best way to go.
Thank you, Luc. Danielle, I'm gonna just quickly read this one for everyone, and then we'll carry on.
Thank you.
C'est en français. Les innovateurs ne sont pas toujours nécessairement des entrepreneurs. Pourriez-vous partager vos expériences en matière d'accompagnement des innovateurs du laboratoire au marché? So can you give an example or two of what are some of the
Okay, merci pour la question. C'est vraiment important. Hein. La meilleure approche, the best way to go about it is to match to create a team, the scientist with a business-minded type of person, hopefully kind of a repeat entrepreneur that would take the best out of the science and innovation and be more agile with funding and commercialization. And our accelerators do that. This Axelis and the scientist innovator program is designed not just to instill a culture of innovation, but also to help them realize that it's very hard to do it alone, and help them match and find those team players.
Luc, est-ce que tu peux, can you say a word about Axelis very quickly? Or Sylvie, or Remy?
Well,
Oui, absolument. C'est la nouvelle, it's the new tech transfer organization. It was believed that the local university-centered tech transfer organizations could benefit from a boost. So as part of this strategy, a new tech transfer organization was created with a broader scope, deeper means of the pre-seed funding funds available to creating spin-offs, and also funding for translational research to bring up the TRLs of promising projects. Also, so it's a great effort. When the question was asked by the previous auditor, it was related to how much different is it than the rest of Canada? That's a key question. How hard is it in other provinces? I'd love to know. How better can we do with Axelis versus efforts of the past that we're in the middle of it, and with all those tools and the network of feet on the ground, 60 innovation agents roaming the corridors of universities, making friends, being on the staff of on the payroll of universities, and making sure to identify promising discoveries and promising works, promising and scientists is also part of the deal.
Merci, Luc. Thank you for that, because it's an important program, I think, and there's again an experiment, but always a very interesting one to see how it's connected to the rest of the strategy. Go ahead, Danielle. There's another one here. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed learning about your innovation experiment. Thank you for sharing. Where can I learn more about how you got this experiment off the ground and how it was structured to create a stronger and more successful innovation environment in Quebec?
Well, we could go back in the book. Now I'll send you summaries of meetings that we had over a couple of years and discussion with the minister to say we need to go from research innovation to commercialization. So certainly with just reading a bit of the strategy, so it's on the website of the ministry, both in both language, so you could look at that. But if you want to know more, then we could probably discuss and send you a bit more info on how we came about developing the various position of chief scientist, chief innovator, and the link with Investissement Québec.
Yeah, I've learned, Remy, that you know, the report is interesting, worth reading, but it's the process that's more important, and how you get there. And you know, that's going to be a great story.
Yeah,
one of these days.
A lot of breakfast, working breakfast early in the morning or late at night, having dinner with government to try to come up with something that seemed to make sense. A lot of fun.
And I think Remy mentioned it, this spirit of collaboration. I mean, you've seen it with the current efforts to define the government strategies for regulating AI and what boundaries and constraints to put on the potential issues with AI. It's a massive democratic effort. All society leaders get together. That was
I was just going to say,
and massive involvements from all leaders. Yeah.
I was going to say that Mark Lowy would love to do a story on that story and interview the three of you for a story in Research Money if you're willing.
Yeah, sure. Could be fun.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
Jeff, I think we have about 5 more minutes, so I'm going to ask Danielle we got 3 or 4 more questions, so we'll see if we can get through a couple of them. Danielle, can you go to the next one real quick?
Yeah. Do the panelists know how Quebec's investment in research compares to that of Ontario in particular? Remy mentioned that Quebec is a leader in Canada, but I'm wondering by how much. Thanks.
Well, here I could just say in terms of GDP. It's not just research, but GDP. There, Quebec is about at 2.2. The average in Canada, I think that Paul may know more than me, but I think it's 1.8 or 1.9 for Canada. So Quebec is the first province in terms of GDP. The other one are all lower. And I don't have the number for Ontario. Don't know, Paul, if you have that.
Yeah, yeah, there are numbers, and the StatsCan produces some of those numbers broken out by province and territory. So we can provide that at some point. Yeah. Next is next question. Sorry.
Yeah, great. So what is the budget and relative power relationship between the economic innovation and energy versus finance in the Quebec ministries?
Sorry, what's the question again? Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so what is the budget and relative power relationship between the economic innovation and energy versus finance Quebec ministries?
Well, the Minister of Finance signed the check. So in a sense, it's powerful, but that's not the ministry that has the largest budget. Our minister is also very influential. So the budget is not as large. Of course, the largest one are health and education. But in terms of influence, our minister, economy, innovation, energy is very influential. But again, finance signed the check at the end of the day.
The next
Right.
question is really interesting. But go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah. So, do you see a strong opportunity for nonprofits/civil society in this new focus of commercialization in the research and innovation strategy?
Absolutely.
Well,
Because if
on that one, we're currently trying revising the funding programs and funding structures for social innovators, for nonprofit organizations, to drive more social innovation and social impact. That it's part of the strategy. The current implementation should emerge next year.
Sylvie, tu voulais dire quelque chose?
just what it comes back to this famous cycle here. If we are better able to commercialize innovation, then we will export more. By exporting more, we will create collective wealth. And this part of this collective wealth can be reinvested in research, and at the end of the day, goes to every type of companies, including non-for-profit companies.
Merci. We're almost there. Danielle, 2 to
All
go.
right. Thank you. Is environment bioeconomy a driver for Quebec's innovation strategy?
I'm not sure bioeconomy. I'm not an expert in bioeconomy, so
That's at least one area that where we'll have a lot of development over the next few years. A lot of discussion with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and whatever else. And we started the network focusing on circular economy. Bioeconomy, in a sense, is a bit part of that. So certainly is one of the priority we discussed with colleagues in Europe about that. Some country in Europe a bit better advanced, more advanced than us in Quebec or in Canada on that, but certainly is an area of great interest to us. Bringing agriculture, there will be most likely an innovation zone that'll be focusing also on agriculture. So that's bioeconomy could be part of that.
And biomanufacturing, of course, is a big part of that as well in Quebec. And you have some facilities there that are being built up with the federal government and others, of course, internationally. The last question, Danielle.
All right, here we go.
I think it's the
So
last
there,
one.
yep, this is the last one.
Okay.
There were many mentions of those guys working together to innovate. We haven't touched much on the woman/gender angle, where Quebec also has a unique history. How does the Quebec innovation strategy approach to this, and for what goal?
Very important, Sylvie.
yes. Well, okay. I'll go back to the funding. Okay, when I talked about the chain of capital, we looked also, when we put that together, we look at what's missing out there. And we know that certain female entrepreneurs have limited access to funding. So we're trying to change that and making sure that when we do invest in companies, we take into account that certain people have unconscious bias. So we make sure that it's very well structured and that there's equal access to capital. And we have different initiatives to make sure at the same time that there are more women entrepreneurs. So there are different initiatives in Quebec regarding that, and that could be an hour discussion. But we are, equality of access to capital is absolutely fundamental.
And I would just add very quickly to who asked that question. There's a 2.5-minute video of Sylvie talking about this. So if you Google Sylvie, the video is very good, and it tells you what they're trying to do with this issue of diversity and gender. Anyway, merci Sylvie. Jeff, I think our time is almost up, but I think you need to, je te donne la parole peut-être to say a few words for conclusion. But before that, gros merci to the superstars on this panel, Sylvie, Remy, Luc,
My
we much
pleasure.
appreciate your fantastic insights and intelligence about this experiment that's underway. Culture, cycles, coordination. There's C's everywhere here. And so I think it's important to see how this evolves. And a lot of us are going to look at this experiment, not just here in Canada, but elsewhere, because it's quite an imaginative approach, a creative approach to the ecosystem for innovation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Remy, as our partner, would you like to say a concluding?
Well, just a couple of words. Thank you, Paul. Thank you to colleagues, and thanks to all the participants. And as Paul said, yes, it's an experiment. And if you have any additional comments to us, feel free to contact us and make comments and say this thing, we tried that in our part of the world, it doesn't work. So maybe we certainly can learn from you as well. Thank you.
I think one of the things that struck me, and I put it down as a comment, and Danielle was correct not to read it because it wasn't a question. But one of the things I find so unique about what you're doing is not only do you have your minister, Monsieur Fitzgibbon, saying the tone at the top, Sylvie, right? Saying this is important. But you've set up structures with people who are actually helping on the implementation. And I don't see that very often across Canada or even in the world. There's a lot of innovation strategies coming out with very good ideas, but the governments don't put the money and the people behind it to help make it happen. And I'm absolutely struck by what you're doing with your team, Luc's team, and the training and the Centre d'Innovation and the regional level. All these things are really showing a commitment, not only in with ideas, but also funding and people's time, which is the biggest resource that we all cherish so much and have so much trouble spreading around. So félicitations on that. I'm very, very interested in seeing how it pans out. And also your measurement, the database that Luc was describing, and the benchmarking. And the fact that you have the wisdom to know it's not a number, and your minister, by saying, are you moving the needle? That's the right question. It's not, is it this high or is it this low or whatever? You want to see progress, and that's another innovation that I see that you're doing. So I'm very, very impressed and very intrigued to watch. And thanks so much. We are going to bring you back. Remy has already agreed. We're going to be partners again in our next conference, the 24th and 25th of April, 2024. Our theme is reverse engineering the future. What do we want to look like in 15 years? What do we want Canada and Quebec to look like in 15 years? And how do we reverse engineer how to get there from here now? And we can take a page off your book to learn how to do that, because you're actually doing that. So we're going to have a lot of fun next April, and I welcome you all to watch for our announcement. So thank you so much, Remy and Sylvie and Luc and Paul. You did a magnificent moderation job. And this session has been recorded, and the recording we'll do some editing to take the top stuff off. But when it's ready, we'll announce it and we'll make it available to everyone.
And thank you, Danielle, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Danielle, you were terrific. You're a reader. We want you on the radio now.
Thank you.
And podcasts as well.
Very good.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everybody. Have a
Merci.
great day.
Thank you,
Merci
everyone.
beaucoup.
La prochaine.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jeff.
much. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Ciao, ciao tout le monde.